Hello and shalom, friends. This is Mayim Vega. Welcome to the Arukah Holistic Podcast, where we explore holistic paths to wellness, transformation, and empowerment. This podcast is a project of Arukah.com, the Holistic Life Academy, where we offer the Arukah Holistic Healer Certification Program to empower people to become holistic healers through naturopathic herbalism, holistic life coaching, and online business and marketing. And today we're honored to have Beth Brunk join us to share her powerful testimony of healing from sexual betrayal trauma. Like us at Arukah, Beth believes deeply in the power of faith and the work we must do to overcome generational strongholds and personal traumas. Beth's journey, rooted in her faith in the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, has brought her from a place of deep suffering to one of transformative healing. Her story is both raw and inspiring, highlighting the importance of resilience, faith, and the courage to seek help and healing. In this episode, Beth will share insights into her journey of overcoming an abusive marriage and the various modalities she has used to heal from sexual betrayal trauma. She'll also provide practical, faith-based tools and resources, including her special offer, my top 3 Bible-based tips for women who have been sexually betrayed by their husband, available on her website, which is bethbrunk.com. And we're grateful for the opportunity to align our mission with Beth's powerful message of healing, faith, and freedom. Hello and shalom, Beth. How are you?
Hi, I'm doing good.
Awesome. So you're in Washington State right now. So is it about 10 a.m. for you?
9.
9. Okay. So you're on Pacific time.
Oh,
Okay. So, well, welcome. Share with us your story.
okay. Well, I was raised in the Midwest, actually. I've been in Washington for 24 years, longer than I was actually in Ohio, where I was born and raised, which is kind of crazy to me. But I got married when I was 20 and moved to Washington. And 10 months after my wedding, I had my first baby. But before we get to that first baby, um, the morning after my wedding night, I woke up and went to eat breakfast and sat there and choked back tears, choked food past the lump in my throat, wondering, what have I done? I'm stuck for the rest of my life in this marriage. What have I done? And
So I take it that you didn't want to get married?
no, I did. I wanted to get married.
Oh, okay.
Yep. I thought I was marrying someone who was godly,
Okay.
but the wedding night showed me different.
Oh, the wedding night. That's very quick.
Yes.
Um, can I ask what the relationship was like before you got married?
So it was a long distance relationship. I grew up in Ohio. He was here in Washington. And so it was long distance. Um, we would go back and forth several times a year. We dated for a year, we're engaged for a year, so we dated for 2 years. And we went back and forth several times a year, and spent a week to 2 weeks together with our families and with each other. Um, and looking back, I see red flags, but at the time, I didn't have words to put to what I was feeling or the things that I was experiencing. Because I had a conversation with my mother, and she asked me, "Do you need to break up with him?" And I said, "Well, I don't know. I don't know why I would be breaking up. I just know that something feels off, but I can't tell you what it is." So I wasn't taught to listen to my intuition.
Mhm.
I wasn't taught to, you know, now if my daughter said something like that to me, I'd be like, "Well, then yeah, you need to break up with him." But my mother was like, "Well, you do what you think is best." And so, there wasn't, um, I couldn't put into words what I was experiencing. And
Well,
now looking back at it now, I can totally put into words what I was experiencing.
Okay, so what was it? What were the red flags?
The red flags were, I remember one specific incident. Um, I was out here and his family decided to go for a picnic in the evening. And we got to where we were going for this picnic, and he wanted to go climb around on the rocks and go exploring. But his mom had said that the meal was going to be pretty soon, pretty quickly. It was just set it out and uncover it and we could eat. And I wanted to hang around with his family, with his brothers, get to know everybody more. And he went off by himself. He went ahead and went exploring all by himself. And we waited. We ended up waiting on him to get back so that we could even eat. And in my home, if something was happening soon, you didn't leave. You stayed there and you helped and you were available when everything was ready. And so that's what I was doing, as well as playing games with his younger brothers. He was the oldest or is the oldest. And so I was playing games with his younger brothers and getting to know them and having fun. And on the way home or on the way back to his parents' house, he pouted. Excuse me. He pouted and he just kind of, I remember thinking, well, this is kind of
Childish?
childish and yeah, childish and just gross. Like, really? Just because I wouldn't go with you because the meal was almost ready, just the whole thing. And then another experience that I had was we would sometimes go where we could look out over the valley. I live in the valley in a valley, and we would go where we could stand and look out over the valley and enjoy the beautiful view. And sometimes I would stand in front of him and he'd have his arms around me. And I remember this one instance where we were standing that way and like, yeah, I could feel him rub himself against me. And I was just like, ew. And so I moved away and he's like, well, where are you going? We'll come back here. And I was like, no, I'm okay. I'll just stand over here. But I didn't have the words then to put that into words for my mother and explain to her what was going on. Um, because I wasn't even sure what was going on exactly. I just knew how it made me feel. Like the instance where we were looking out over the valley, I just felt like gross, like used, and why would you even do that? Um, so that's a couple of instances. And then the wedding night, kind of, and actually I talked to my dad, I talked to my mother, I talked to some girlfriends. And my dad actually said to me, Beth, he treats you really good. Don't let him get away. And another girlfriend said, he treats you like a queen. Like, we all want someone that treats us this way. And so I have my dad, who I look up to and I respect, saying this to me. And I have girlfriends that are watching the relationship saying this to me. And so I'm like, okay, well,
So what made them say those things, do you
they
think?
were, they were, so 24 years later, I can say that they were charmed.
So
Um,
he was charismatic, he was friendly.
Friendly,
Yes?
charismatic, charming. Yes, um he charmed me. And jumping ahead a little bit, when I finally started speaking up 15 years into the marriage that things weren't right, this is what had been happening. Some of the pushback that I got with people that we fellowshipped with was, Beth, he dances in fellowship and um he runs the music and he runs the audio system and he does all these things for the fellowship, and like he's a really great guy. You mean to tell me, like, I don't believe you? And some of them in fact said things like that to me, that, well, he does all these things, and I'm saying, but you don't see what's going on at home. You're not in our bedroom, you're not in our home, you're not behind our closed doors to see what's actually going on. There's this beautiful persona to the outside world, but in the home it's vastly different. So I now know that that's exactly what happened when we were dating. Was he had this persona that was a facade, and I didn't know that that's what was going on.
Okay. And then what happened on the wedding night?
So on the wedding night, he basically did his thing, rolled over and went to sleep. There was no exploration. It was all about himself. So, nothing like you know, the way he had treated me dating, thought it was going to be a beautiful thing. And instead it was pretty horrific. I actually did EMDR around just the wedding night. I did EMDR around that.
Okay, can you explain what EMDR is?
Yes, I loved EMDR. So EMDR is um, eye movement reprocessing desensitization. So when we sleep, when we're in our REM sleep, rapid eye movement sleep, our eyes move back and forth very quickly, and that helps our brain to process our day, the things we did, the things we said, just process everything so we can wake up refreshed, ready to face a new day. And when we're doing EMDR, some practitioners use a light bar. My practitioner used a light bar, and the lights go back and forth, and you follow that movement with your eyes. Some practitioners use vibrators that you hold in your hands, and one vibrates and then the other. And what it does is it stimulates the brain bilaterally so that you're processing things. And my therapist explained it like a train. Like there's all these stories on this train, and as you're doing this eye movement, this train is going through your brain, and you're seeing all these different things, or you're feeling these different things, and you're able to process them so that then you can move on without them continuing to be intrusive thoughts and hold you captive.
Okay, interesting. Can you explain
So,
what the benefits are that you experienced from it?
yes. So she actually diagnosed me with PTSD, and which I was already pretty certain that I had. And she diagnosed me with PTSD, and I asked her at the beginning. So my EMDR therapist worked with sexual sexual abuse victims. That's her specialty. And we set up the safe space. We attached a color to my experience, and then we would do the light bar. And every session, she'd stop periodically and she'd say, "Okay, what are you feeling? What are you seeing? What are you experiencing?" And she'd make some notes, and we'd move on. And it might be in one section of watching the lights, I was laughing. It was good things happening. In the next section, I was crying. I was in tears. Another section, I might just want to be curled up in a ball on the floor because it was, that was what I was experiencing. So ultimately, what it did was it helped me to process my feelings, my thoughts. It helped my body to process the experiences of my wedding night. And those things no longer hold me captive. Like I no longer have intrusive thoughts. I've been able to forgive him, and I've been able to move on. So it took me about 8 weeks for my experience. When we started, I asked her, "Now, how long does this usually take?" And she said, "Most people, it takes about 8 months." And I was like, 8 months? Because I was driving an hour and 45 minutes to go to my appointments every single week, one way. And I was like, that's a long time. But she actually told me, she said, "I love working with you, Beth, because you partner with God, and He's really helping your healing." And my healing was very quick. I was ready to heal. I was ready to no longer deal with all of this pain and the intrusive thoughts and the hyper alertness. So I was ready to deal with all of it. And that really showed up in my work and the amount of time it took me to process things and to move forward.
Okay, very interesting. Well, got a lot of thoughts in my head. So it seems to me that that EMDR is a way to tap into your subconscious to process your thoughts, your trauma, and enable healing. Um, our brains naturally do that to a certain degree when we're awake, asleep and dreaming. It's part of the healing process when we are asleep. But sometimes it's not enough, and sometimes we have to process our thoughts, our experiences, and our emotions while we are awake. And I do believe that there are different ways to do that. Deep prayer sometimes, which can sometimes put you in a meditative type state. And things like EMDR, things like music, meditating in terms of repetition of a verse or a prayer or something like that, sometimes can put you into a trance-like state, which could be necessary, which sometimes can help you access thoughts and feelings and prayers, desires of your heart that it's hard to just form into words as you're just talking, either to a person or even to God in prayer. I'd like to comment a little bit on your experience. I would like to say that, first of all, what you see as red flags now, I don't know that the majority of the world would see as red flags ever, unless they had a bad experience after then connected it. I feel like you're just looking at the worst parts of your experience with him and connecting it. Not that you shouldn't have paid attention to it, but I'm wondering, did you talk to him about that experience, about the experience of when he left to go rock climbing? When he came back, did you talk to him and say, hey, why'd you do that? How come you just didn't stay with your family, with me? Or when he was pouting, why are you pouting? I wanted to get to know your family. I wanted to honor your mother, things like that. Did you try to talk or communicate with him at that time?
No, I didn't. We were riding with his family. And so I didn't bring it up then. And I don't remember that I brought it up later either. Yeah, I don't know. I don't think that I did. I don't remember that I did.
Yeah, and also the other time that you described when he was like rubbing himself on you, you didn't talk about it. You didn't talk about that as well, right?
Well, when I did tell him like, no, I'm not going to stand in front of you again. I didn't talk to him about it because I was raised very sheltered. I was raised in a conservative Christian home. It would be similar to Amish or Mennonite. And so I didn't know exactly what was going on.
Mm.
So I didn't bring it up with him. No.
Okay.
But looking at it after I was married and those kinds of things would happen, I realized what was going on. I realized what he had been doing.
Yeah.
And those things became patterns in the marriage. Like that all became a pattern that was something that played out in the marriage.
In terms of what are you talking about exactly?
In terms of his behavior.
In terms of
those behaviors, like the pouting and the rubbing himself against me and the manipulation is the word that comes to mind, but I'm not sure. Manipulation is definitely something that happened in the marriage, and throughout the divorce, definitely was something that happened. I don't know that that's what the word that I want to use. The pouting was a form of manipulation after the fact. Like knowing what I know now, having been married to him, I was married to him for 23 years. That was one way that he manipulated me emotionally, was through pouting and making me feel sorry for him, that I had hurt him and those kinds of things.
Yeah. I'd say a lot of people do it. A lot of humans do it, children as
Mhm.
well as adults.
Yeah.
It's definitely manipulation. Um, I don't know that everyone, I don't know that sometimes it's not intended to be a manipulation though. It's sometimes pouting just comes naturally to
Mhm.
people. I know it does to many of my children.
Right.
Of course they want their way, everyone wants their way.
Right.
Um, okay, it's very interesting. Um, I feel like I pout sometimes, when I don't get my way in my marriage. Um, do I want my own way when I pout? Yeah, I do. Um, I don't hold a grudge for a very long time though, although I do for a while. Does it manipulate my husband to do what I want? I would say sometimes.
Mhm.
Yes, yes. I think that though I was not, I grew up Christian as well, but I was not sheltered. In my opinion, I wasn't sheltered enough.
Mhm.
Um, and let's see. Um, yeah, like a lot of the things that you said is like, I feel like, oh, that's so minor. That's so little, But another thing though that would have been different maybe for me is I would have talked. I would have probably said something right away, or I would have ended the relationship if I didn't feel comfortable.
Mhm.
Um, so there's a lot of differences, perhaps because of the way that we grew up. I think there's something to sheltering your children, but not to the point where they don't understand what happens in real life
Right.
or how to deal with it or
Mhm.
process it. I like to, so I'm Jewish, and there's a Jewish midrash. Midrash means legend. It could or could not be true. We don't know, but there's usually always a story behind it, like a lesson behind a moral to the story, right?
Mhm.
And there's one midrash that talks about the Garden of Eden, and you know how God said, "Don't eat this fruit," right? Don't eat the forbidden fruit. And this one legend says that God wasn't intending to keep the knowledge of good and evil from Adam and Eve forever, but he didn't want them to eat it alone without him. And Satan tempted Eve and ultimately Adam to eat it without the Father's presence. And so that the moral of the story that I learned from that is that we aren't to shelter our children so much that they don't even know, they can't even recognize what evil is or what to do with it.
Mhm.
But we shelter them in a way so that they understand that we're with them, especially in their younger years. And we teach them what evil is. And then we also, at the same time, teach them how to overcome it, how to prevent it, and what the alternative is.
Right.
Because I would also think that him, I believe he's also a victim of um, ignorance in terms of how to treat a woman properly, how to have sex with women properly, things like that. Like and because of all of his wonderful attributes that he had naturally, all the charm and things like that, those are gifts too that were given to him by God. Um, and perhaps, I don't know, I'm gonna assume that he also lived somewhat sheltered Christian. No, am I
Well,
wrong in that?
he was a porn addict. He was a is a pornography addict and has been since age 12. So that knowing what we know now about pornography and the addiction and what it does to the brain and how it affects how men treat women and how men view women, um, he wasn't as sheltered as he should have been.
Mm. But they thought he was. They tried to, but that was a big kind
Well,
of glaring thing that they didn't see or something, or
um, he had a computer at age 10 and free reign. It was a great babysitter.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. That is really, that's a huge problem. I believe that ruins a lot of marriages
Yep.
because it gives men a false impression of what sex is and what a woman's role is. And when you couple that with being religious and not, understanding the proper way to, have relations with a woman, then it's skewed. Then you've got this outside religious facade and then this inside, you know, these inside thoughts of how something is supposed to be.
Correct. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. And his parents never talked to him about sex and what it was and or anything. Um, so if I could go back and redo things, there's a lot that I would redo. Well, I've done a lot of growing in 24 years, a lot of changing. But that was something that I did talk to him about was, um, what was his sex education? What was he thinking for preventing pregnancy? That was things that we did discuss. Um, so I did bring those kinds of things up, along with
Mm-hmm.
other things as well. But what did not come up was that he had been looking at pornography since he was 6 years old, or
Mm-hmm.
not six, I'm sorry, 12 years old. And my parents didn't know, and I didn't know at that time. 24 years ago, the internet was still fairly new, and we didn't know that we needed to ask these kinds of questions.
That's right. That's right. And my parents too, I had free reign of the computer. I wasn't addicted to porn, but I just wasted a lot of time on the computer.
Mhm.
But I did have a lot of, friends who probably did. And the thing is, I come from a third world country, I come from the Philippines. I was born there. I was raised in America though, in California. And in the Philippines, and also in my parents' day, there was no such thing um as online on-demand porn, in order to see pornography, they would have to buy a physical magazine, maybe, or go to, maybe a local strip club or actually hire a prostitute. So it was much harder. And I don't really think they understood or even knew that there was like online porn, you know.
Right.
Well, there wasn't when I was a child, there wasn't that yet quite, but shortly it was available, maybe around my high school years.
Yeah.
So you could say that his parents were also a victim of the big tech industry. And it's so interesting also. I hear so often that these media tech founders like Bill Gates and Steve Jobs and whoever, all these people, they don't let their own children have access to the media that they want our children to be
Mhm.
addicted to.
Yeah.
And
Isn't
that,
that interesting?
yes,
It's
that
like
says a
they
lot.
know something.
They know something.
Mhm.
They're the drug dealers,
Mhm.
but they know that drugs can ruin your life, so they don't want their own children to be on that drug. But they're
Right.
just fine giving our society, everyone else in society drugs because they profit from it.
Right.
Yeah. So I homeschool and I'm a computer scientist by education. So it's very hard for me to get away from computers. And even with my online health business, it's all online based. So I'm very computer oriented, but I have all of the devices in my house are locked down. Um, Only myself, my husband, and my oldest daughter have access to the all the computers. And also, um, I did start letting them have phones when they were around high school age, but
Mhm.
I had access to it and I would monitor it and I wouldn't let them have it all the time. And I would just make sure that they're on it. I didn't want them to have social media accounts, for a long time. And even now I'm monitoring their social media accounts. They're like 18 and 20. I'm like, what are they posting?
Yeah.
What are they doing? And then if I see something I don't like, I'll tell them.
Mhm.
Um, because they're always going to be my children, right?
Right.
Um, and so yeah, it's really, really important to monitor that. And just, if we are not monitoring that, there's a story, a friend, she was saying that, well, I saw her story on Facebook, I think it was, she was talking about her son and about how her son, I think he was in middle school, and her son went to her and said, like, Mom, I need you to take away my phone because I'm doing things on it that I shouldn't be doing, and I find it very hard to stop. And she said, no, you have to learn how to control yourself. And I think that's a mistake, um, because that's like, it's like it's a drug, and it does to your mind, to your brain, what drugs do. And you wouldn't say that to a child when it comes to illegal drugs. You wouldn't say, no, I'm not going to take it away I'm not going to take away access to it. Let's say they're addicted to a prescription drug that you have, and they said that. You wouldn't say, no, 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 go ahead. I'm not going to do anything. You just have to control yourself. No, human beings need help sometimes. Adults need help sometimes. And that's why they go to 12-step programs and addiction recovery groups and things like that. It's because we all need help. We all need accountability, especially as the world and our age advances and the opportunity to do evil just becomes easier and easier and easier. And then we have the media and society lying to us that it's not evil, it's not bad, and things like that. We need to help each other, our children especially, but sometimes even our spouses, and sometimes we ourselves need to reach out and ask for help. I know that pornography has harmed a lot of marriages, and sometimes people choose to stay, maybe because they are not financially able to break free, or for whatever the reason, and so they just kind of, a lot of women just stay there suffering. Sometimes I do believe, though, that ultimatums and either leaving or at least having the threat of leaving is very powerful. Not only is it a healthy boundary that women can set sometimes, but it also can serve as a powerful wake-up call for the man and say, look, do you want to do something or not? A lot of times men don't want to get counseling. They don't want to get help. But when faced with divorce, that's the only thing that will really encourage them to finally get counseling and deal with those problems.
Some men, I know a few that is the case, but I know way too many that they don't care.
Yeah, they would rather get divorced.
They would rather be in their addiction than
get counseling or help or try to stop. Yeah.
So my former husband, actually, I woke up one morning in 2015 and I said, "Are you still looking at pornography?" And he said, "Yes." And I said, "Okay, you need to move out," because I was seeing the effects on my children. We have 5 children.
So how long were you married?
23 years.
Oh, you're married 23 years. Wow.
Sought help in that time, went to a minister. And in that conversation with the minister, he told the minister that he looked at pornography since he was 12 years old. He also told the minister I wouldn't have sex with him. And that's why he looked at pornography.
But that's false.
Well, instead of the minister calling him out and saying, well, if you fixed your problem, it would probably fix her problem, the minister looked at me and said, you need to give him more sex every day, multiple times a day, if that's what he wants. Well, if you've ever been told something like that and you follow that advice, you know it does not work. It would be like giving a heroin addict every time they wanted it, just saying, okay, here you go, have it.
Not only that, but I mean, it can even be harmful to a woman's body. I mean, if she's not in the mood and she's only doing it for the other person, she doesn't have enough lubrication, that could cause microcuts in her body. Right. That is harmful. That's rape, if it's not really consensual.
Yes. Yes. So not only that, but it's harmful emotionally and mentally because it is rape. And there actually was marital rape in my marriage. I would tell him no, and he more than once took it, did what he wanted anyway. And I did try and fight him off, but I quickly realized there's no way I could. And so I gave up. And it's heartrending when your daughter told you that at 12 years old, she knew that her father was raping her mother because she overheard a conversation that she should have never heard between him and I.
So can I ask why did you stay so long?
Because I was taught that divorce is wrong. I was taught that that God hates divorce, and that if you do get divorced, you don't get remarried. Now, I was called out of the fellowship I grew up in, and no longer haven't been part of that fellowship for a long time.
Would you
I think
mind if
like
I asked what the name of it was or
Old German
is?
Baptist, Old German Baptist Brethren.
So it's just a specific church. It's not necessarily a denomination or
It is a denomination.
oh, it is.
Yeah.
And how do you say that again?
Old German Baptist Brethren.
Old German. Okay, yes, Old German. Yes. Mm-hmm.
So was called out of that. And when I started really studying what the Bible said about divorce, especially in the Old Testament, why was divorce given to the Israelites? What all went into that? And then looking at the New Testament, what does Yeshua say about divorce? And in the prophets, what is said? And I started studying and realized that actually divorce is not what he hates. Yes, it's not his perfect plan. It's not what he wants for any family, but he hates the abuse that leads to divorce. And
On
there's
either side.
on either side. Yes, it can be women that are abusive as well,
Mm-hmm.
for sure. But
Or unfaithful, or yeah.
yep, yep. Um, there is a mindset, I guess it is, right now that women are divorcing men just frivolously. And I disagree with that. If you talk to these women and you really get to know them, more often than not, you're going to find out that there's been infidelity or abuse or both. There's been something that caused them. They're not doing it just because they fell out of love. That's not what's going on. Divorce is not fun. Divorce is not easy. And the majority of us, we feel like failures because we did everything we could to save our marriages. Even when we were enduring abuse and sexual abuse and mental abuse and emotional, financial, religious, spiritual, we were still putting our all into saving our marriage because we didn't want that. But it comes to a point that if he's unwilling to actually do the work to heal, then we have no other choice because we see the effects of it in our children. We see the effects of the abuse in our children because not only was I abused, but my children were abused. He was grooming my children. He was physically abusive to them. But the pornography, we see the effects of that, even though they might not know that that's going on in the home. It's like opening the doors wide and saying, "Oh, Satan, yeah, you come right on in. You're welcomed here." And that's exactly what I told him that I felt like he had done. He'd opened the doors wide with his pornography use, said, "Yeah, come right in. You're welcomed here," and exposed myself and our children to all of the evil that goes along with that. It wasn't until I was in the midst of my divorce that my daughter wrote a declaration. She's 23, and she wrote a declaration, and I didn't know a lot of the things that were in that declaration. And it literally took the breath out of my lungs, and I sobbed and I sobbed. And I said, if he was doing that to her, then he did it to the rest of the children as well. And I actually saw where he was grooming my youngest daughter as well. But there's also two boys in there. And I believe that they have their own story, but they won't talk.
What do you mean by grooming, if you don't mind me asking?
So he, with my oldest daughter, he never molested her, but he tested her to see how much she would let him get away with. Putting his hands places that his hands didn't belong on his daughter, saying things to her that a father should never say or even think about his daughter. Things that I actually heard him say to her, and I came unglued on him, was, when you wear that, it makes me want to have sex with you. No father should be thinking those thoughts, let alone saying them to his teenage daughter. Buying gifts for no reason, just buying gifts for the children. He didn't really ever buy me gifts, but he was for the children. So just things like anyone would groom a child for their own sexual pleasure, he was doing to his own children.
Yeah. And I've seen and heard that. I have unfortunately friends who have experienced that kind of thing. Mm-hmm. And that's how it starts. And sometimes they wait until the children are 18 or whatnot. And sometimes they don't, and you never know. So was that the final straw that finally made you leave?
The final straw was when he choked our son to the point of blackout. And I told him, you have to move out. You're not coming home until you've taken anger management classes. You went to counseling, whatever it takes for
Did
you
you call
to
the
get
cops? Help. Did you call the cops?
I didn't.
Definitely should have.
Right. I know that. I also know I should have called CPS. There's so many things that I did wrong. There's so many things that I did wrong. I'm aware of all of them.
Yeah. Number one, because that is probably the biggest leverage that you will have if you're going to leave, to have full custody of your children. If after a physical incident that happens, and also just for everyone to know, if they're listening, if they're in some kind of abusive relationship, even if they don't do anything, the fact that it's on police record, even if they come and they find that they don't want to do anything, but it's on their record. So in the future, you have a court case. And also just to document everything, every little thing that you hear about, taking pictures if you can, having an alternate email address that no one knows about, that you send it to, in case your own, your regular email gets compromised or hacked or anything like that. Just having a backup copy of records, pictures, stories that you jot down. Mm-hmm. I know women who have just, if the husband is yelling or something, they just secretly start recording it on their phones and stuff like that. So when it does come to when they have to go to court, and sometimes husbands will lie, women do it too. Men and women both lie in court. You actually have evidence to give.
Right. So I actually, so that was, he did that. I told him he had to move out. He did. And he did start going to counseling, but really all that did was gave him the verbiage. He never actually changed anything. He is still actively using pornography. But what happened for me, and I know was a huge blessing, it was my Heavenly Father looking out for me, was that he actually admitted in text messages that he had raped me, that he had been verbally and emotionally abusive to me, and that he had been physically abusive to the children. So I had these text messages from him that I was able to get a protection order for myself and my two youngest children. And I have a 2-year protection order that I just got in September that was renewed from a 1 year. And my children have, in the final divorce, they have a restraining order. And he is required to get a DV assessment, a domestic violence assessment, and he's required to work with a reunification counselor before he can have any contact with the 2 youngest children. So I feel like those text messages really solidified my case, as well as I worked with a domestic violence advocacy group here in my town. And he actually broke my protection order in May of this year to let me know that he was not going to be able to do the parenting plan requirements of the DV assessment and the reunification counselor for 1 to 3 years. His words. That's kind of the way he operates. He is very much, in his mind, he's very much a victim. I was the abuser in his mind. He's switched everything around. So he's not been formally diagnosed with narcissism that I know of, but he was diagnosed with bipolar from the Amen Clinic. And somehow he got himself a diagnosis of autism. And that's been his excuse. Well, he's autistic, and that's why he behaved the way that he did. So there's a lot of.
That's no excuse. He might be autistic and bipolar. I would believe that he's bipolar, but that's never an excuse. I'm bipolar. Many people are autistic, that they're not going around and raping. That's for sure.
Right, exactly. But he saw that as a way to gain sympathy with the court, and to excuse his behavior.
Did they?
No, I got the protection orders. I got the restraining orders.
He tried. He tried.
He tried.
Yeah,
he tried. But the court, in some ways, the court did have sympathy towards him. I'm not receiving the child support that I should receive. I walked away. He has a $200,000 business that I walked away from that. I didn't fight for my 50% of that. I walked away from it because I said, I have my children. They're more important to me than money. I'll figure out how to support us, but they're protected from him. And I didn't protect my older children. I'm protecting my younger children. And that's what's important. So,
yeah, I want to highlight a few differences also in Judaism in terms of some of our beliefs. First of all, in Judaism, there's no such thing as that divorce is not allowed. Divorce is allowed. Sometimes there's stigma behind divorce. And so people might not want to marry someone who is divorced unless you are also divorced. But to me, that's a minor issue. I think the bigger issue is when a lot of Christian religions say that divorce is not allowed, or if you divorce your spouse, that you can never remarry. That's not biblical.
right.
Also in Jewish law, well, it says that in the ketubah, so when two Jews get married, they have a contract. It's called the ketubah, and in this contract, it outlines the man's marital duties. So there's nothing about the women's duties. It's only the man's duties, and it's the man's duty to, number one, provide her with food and clothing and shelter, and also sexual relations. And the way that's interpreted in Judaism is that at least the way I was taught by rabbis, I'm sure there's always different interpretations, but the way that's taught is that a man must please his wife first, make her orgasm first, before he can demand or request whatever, pleasure for himself. And I think that's a bit extreme because sometimes I personally don't mind having sex and not orgasming, but I think that should be personally up to the couple, but I understand the need for that kind of interpretation of the ketubah, so as not to abuse sexual relations. And also, I think another helpful thing, at least in Orthodox Judaism, is that men and women are not supposed to touch before marriage. And, people make exclusions, such as, handshaking, and, like for business settings, things like that. But for the most part, there shouldn't be any touching involved. And that really guards people and protects the sacredness of the marriage bed. And I just think that the idea that divorce is not allowed, it ignores the first 5 books of the Bible, which we call the Torah, which is the foundation not only of Judaism, but it's also the foundation of Christianity and even Islam, because without the first 5 books, without those, the creation narrative and the birth of the nation of Israel, there's nothing else. Nothing else could be without that. That is the origin story of all the, major monotheistic religions. So it's really important to not do away with those laws, with those principles, so that we don't do away with a foundational thing that God gave us to protect us. Everything is there to protect us. Right. Actually, even the heart. I mean, I know there's slavery, yeah, but the Torah wasn't there to promote slavery. The Torah was there to regulate it so that we're not abusing people with slavery. Mm-hmm. And anyone that has an iPhone today or other things that are made in China, you are actually participating in slavery because those products were made in third world countries where the labor conditions are pretty much slavery, and not the good, not the protective slavery that the Torah says, but a much more abusive form of slavery than the Torah allows. So that kind of slavery is actually banning it. And yeah, so there's a lot to consider, and when religious leaders make these kinds of calls, they're just taking like a few verses from the New Testament or something, and they're not really understanding the impact that it can have on men, women, children, society as a whole, the abuse that they are condoning and promoting through these religious beliefs, and they can be so powerful.
Well, and the Torah is about life. It's about life. You were talking about the protection of the slavery. It's so that there's not abuse
and death.
And right. But when we're told in the Christian circles that God hates divorce, we're saying God loves the covenant and sanctity of marriage above a human, which is not the case. That's completely backwards. So it needs to be flipped, where he loves his children more than he loves the sanctity and covenant of marriage. Because I literally felt like my humanity was removed. I was told multiple times that, one person told me, Beth, you made an agreement, you made a covenant to stay with him for the rest of your life, and that's what God requires of you now. And it was like, that completely moves any personhood that I have, and tells me that he desires my marriage over he desires my safety and the safety of my children.
Yes, right.
Who are his children.
Right.
Ultimately, they're his children. So, Yeah, it's completely, the script is completely flipped and backwards,
Yes,
as man tends to do.
yes. There's actually another Jewish principle called pikuach nefesh, which means it means like preservation of life. And what it states is that every commandment can be broken in order to save life, except for three, which is murder, adultery, and idolatry. You can't murder someone to save life because you're harming another person's life. Um, you shouldn't become an adulteress to save someone's life. And also, you should not commit idolatry. And we have the example of Daniel in the Bible and his friends. They were not willing to bow down even in order to save their life. But besides that, every other commandment can be broken in order to save life. And if a woman is being abused or her children are being abused, that is a life-threatening situation. You don't know how far that person is willing to go. If they can hit you, I mean, they could also kill you, in my opinion. And I'm not saying that you have to get divorced right away, but that certainly needs to be addressed for sure. And there should be measures in place to prevent that from ever happening again. And that could mean divorce, could mean counseling, it could mean separation, could mean many things, restraining order. It could mean many things, but it's okay. It's okay to break one of the commandments in order to save your life, because the commandments are for us. We're not made for the commandments. The commandments are made for us so that we could live, like you said, they're made for life, so that we could live to serve God and serve humanity. So I want to transition now from your story to talking about how you help people. There's also another Jewish principle called tikkun olam, which means repair of the world, healing the world. And rabbis often say that whatever it is that you have gone through, the trauma, whether it be trauma, abuse, a challenge, it could even be a birth defect or something like that. Anything in your life that has challenged you and that you have overcome, that can then be your tikkun. That can be the way that you help to heal the world, help to repair the world. So what is your tikkun?
So I work with women who have been sexually betrayed by their husband, and I help them as they're in their healing or they're beginning their healing. I help them to set boundaries, to know their priorities, and those two go together, because if you know what your priorities are, you can set a boundary around that priority. So, for example, if you have a priority of not fighting, then you're going to have a boundary that says, if he says something like this or she says something like this is what I'm going to do and this is how I'm going to enforce it. So for me, I would get text messages every day after I told him that I wanted a divorce, that one day it would be, you're doing the best thing that you should do. You should be divorcing me. You should have did this a long time ago. The next day, or even the very same afternoon, it might be a text message saying, God hates divorce and you should not be doing this. You're in the wrong. And so it was just this flip flop. And I decided I wasn't going to respond to these. And I told him, I'm not going to respond to these. These are the things that I will talk to you about. They pertained to dividing assets, anything that had to do at that time. He was still seeing the children, anything pertaining to the children. Those are the things I will talk to you about. Anything beyond that, I am not going to respond. And that made him mad. He did not like that. But I kept that boundary. My priority was not that. My priority was that I was going to protect my own mental and emotional well-being and not allow him to get into that space. And so I put a boundary there. I might read the messages, but I didn't ruminate on them. I didn't continue to think about them. I just said, okay, that's fine. He said that. I'm not going to respond. He knows I'm not going to respond. And I would go on about my day. So when you know your priorities, you can set boundaries better. I also highly, highly encourage journaling, and self-care is huge. Often when we have been sexually betrayed, if we hadn't already lost ourselves in the marriage, my story is a little bit different in that I knew on my wedding night something was greatly wrong. Then he masturbated in front of me on our honeymoon. That I knew something was really, really wrong. But 2 years into our marriage, he came and told me that he looked at pornography. And so then I had what in the sexual betrayal world is called trickle disclosure, where they trickled their disclosure of their activities. And mine was over years. Some women, they have this one moment where they discover, maybe they're using his phone and they see something, or they catch him on the computer or on his phone, or a child catches him, whatever the case may be, they have this one instance. Where mine was over my entire marriage. And so I lost myself. And so self-care is really big, whether you have this one instance where you discover that he's doing something. Either way, we are affected, whether we know what's going on behind closed doors with him, what he's looking at on his phone or computer, we are still affected because it affects us spiritually, it affects us emotionally, it affects us mentally. Even though we don't know what's going on, we still get effects from it. So self-care is vitally important. And self-care isn't just eating chocolate and taking bubble baths. Self-care goes so far beyond that. Journaling is self-care. Listening to your body when it says, today I need to rest. This afternoon I need to rest. I need a nap. Or I need to go to bed at 8 o'clock instead of 10 o'clock. That is true self-care. And it goes much deeper even than that.
Setting boundaries is self-care too.
Setting boundaries is self-care. Yes.
Getting coaching is self-care.
Getting coaching is self-care. Therapy is self-care. Yeah. Talking, speaking up, sharing. And I know a lot of
sharing
women,
your story, yeah.
Sharing your story. And I know a lot of women, myself included, there's so much shame surrounding that you were married to someone like this, or that you allowed this to happen, or that you didn't call CPS, or that you whatever the case may be. There's a lot of shame. And there's a lot of shame because oftentimes when it's been discovered what they're doing, they turn it around and they say, well, if you had more sex with me, and they blame it all on you. And so then there's shame that comes from that. Well, maybe I did drive him to look at pornography because I didn't want sex every single night, even though I did want it 3 nights a week, he wanted it every single night. So maybe I did drive it. So there's a whole bunch of shame and dealing with that shame. So women often don't speak up. But I learned from Brene Brown that the antidote to shame is vulnerability. So I learned when I started being vulnerable and sharing my story, other women also started sharing. They started speaking up. They started saying, that's also happening to me. Or my husband also looks at pornography, but I thought I was all alone. Let me just say, you're not alone. There are way more of us out here than I care to even think. It's an epidemic in the United States.
It is for sure. Okay. Another thing I wanted to say, I'm sorry, is that God does hate divorce, but he, we read the Torah portion, we read a different Torah portion every week as Jews, and we go through the whole Torah. The Torah is the first 5 books of the Bible, for anyone that doesn't know. And we recently finished the Torah portion. It's November 6th, the day after Election Day. So we recently finished the Torah portion, Noach, because I don't know when this episode is going to be published. It really, it is live right now, though, but on Facebook. But anyways, we just finished the Torah portion of Noah. And in Noah, it says that the reason that God declared he destroyed the world was not because of divorce. It says that the world was filled with Hamas. Hamas is the Hebrew word. Very interesting that Hamas, the Palestinian terror organization, chose that name and terrorizes Israel right now. But Hamas, it's often translated as robbery in Bibles, but it's more than just robbery. Robbery is a form of Hamas. A much better word to translate it, which is more all-encompassing, because Hebrew never literally always perfectly translates into English, but a much better word to translate it would be violence. The world was filled with violence. So God decided to destroy the whole entire world. And so rape is another form of Hamas violence. And of course, abuse, physical abuse of children. Again, Hamas. There's only, there are some times when Hamas violence is condoned, and that's during times of war, especially in self-defense, and also if you have to defend yourself in any situation. And also, there's corporate punishment from the court system. They often exercise Hamas for punishment in terms of whipping, lashes, or death penalty for capital crimes. And so, but it's very controlled, very limited. For the most part, unless it's to discipline someone or to wage war against an enemy that might kill you, which goes back to Puak Nefesh, Hamas is what God hates the most, that he hates violence so much that that he destroyed the whole entire world with it. So that's something that I believe Christian pastors need to learn. More than divorce, God hates violence. Rape is violence. Physical abuse is violence. And God hates that more than divorce because he destroyed the whole entire world because of it. And to remember, to protect innocent women and children who are being raped or abused, because that's also not okay. It's like the marriage is the only thing they care about, just like you were saying. It's more important than the individual, which is false. So I think coaching is very important. Coaching has personally helped me through marriage, so that my husband and I didn't have to get divorced. Marriage coaching, and personal life coaching, one-on-one, also helped me through a lot of stressful times that threatened my health, that threatened my family, that threatened my business, because when you're going through all types of trauma and stress, you can't function very well for other people. You have to get that self-care, and sometimes you need someone. And I personally prefer to use coaches rather than therapists, because I appreciate the coaching approach, where it's not about that there's something wrong with you that needs to be fixed, but that you have a goal that you want to meet, and the coach is there to empower you to do what only you can do as an individual. It's the person that's the star, that's the expert, and the coach is there to help and support you. And I love that model. Of course, I do believe in, because the coaching industry is not regulated, I do believe that you have to make sure that you trust the coach that you have, that your values align with theirs, and that you also trust that they maybe possibly through their life experience or through the methods that they use, that they can help you with your situation as well. So if people do want coaching, what is the best way to get a hold of you?
You can email me at coach@bethbrunk.com. I'm also on Instagram and Facebook as Beth Brunk Coaching, and my website, bethbrunk.com. You can get a hold of me through there as well.
Awesome. And I have your website pulled up right here. Can you tell us more? What are your offerings on your website?
So I have a blog, and I have several blog posts up there that tell my story, that are encouraging. And then under the About section, I believe it's under here. If you scroll down, there's courses and coaching and my credentials and podcasts that I've been on. And then I also have my top 3 biblical-based tips for women who've been sexually betrayed.
Oh yes, how do you access that?
Down there at the bottom it says get my free guide.
I don't.
The very bottom.
Oh, right here. That's so
Yep.
tiny. Oh, you
Yeah.
got to make that bigger.
Well, there's another place too that you can do that.
Okay, maybe you should put it up here, right next to blog.
That's a good idea. That's
Okay.
probably
Okay, great. And can you talk more about the course?
so the course is it's for 12 weeks, and the purpose of it is to bring you out of survival mode, because often we are in survival mode when we have been sexually betrayed. We just we start having intrusive thoughts. We start being hyper alert. Often we want to start checking his phone or his computer, but don't do that, please. Don't do that. And so
Why do you say don't do that?
well, because number one, it's not your place to be his accountability. Number two, he needs to be honest with you, not you checking his phone and finding out what he's doing. But he needs to be honest and tell you what he's doing. And number three, when you do find something on his phone or his computer, it's going to traumatize you more. You're going to start questioning more than you already are. You're going to become angry. And when we're angry, we don't have peace, and we often will abandon our boundaries and forget our priorities. And we lose it. So it's best to just not even go there. Just let him do his own work while you're doing your own healing work. And it's group coaching. So I can do it one-on-one or group coaching. I have found that group coaching is amazing because it helps you understand that you're not alone.
Mm-hmm.
It's not just me as your coach who's had this experience, but there's this whole group of women who've had their own experiences. And you're able to speak into each other's lives. You're able to empathize. Oh, yeah, I've been there. I know how I felt when that happened to me.
And is the group coaching available? Like, can someone just enroll at any time and participate, or is it like it starts at a certain date and ends at a certain date?
They can enroll at any time and participate.
Okay, so the group is always there.
Yes.
Okay, that's very helpful. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for sharing your story. Thank you so much for helping others through similar situations as you. You know, unfortunately, a lot of us, our mothers didn't adequately prepare us for everything that might happen. They couldn't possibly prepare us for everything that might happen in our lives.
Just as we can't prepare our children.
Yeah.
We don't know everything that's going to happen to our children.
Right. Also, we need to be seeking guidance and counseling from elders that we trust. I think that's another important part of coaching, is it allows for that, allows for what tribal societies used to have naturally. Mm-hmm. And since we've, for the most part, as a society, gotten away from a tribal culture, we still need those mentors. We still need the tribal elders, to look up to, and help us and talk to us and listen to us and things like that. So thank you so much again for everything that you do. And I'll put all the links to your contact information in the show notes. And just before we go, would you like to end with just a closing thought?
Yes. I just want women to know, and I said this earlier, but you're not alone. You're not. And if you are in a marriage where you've been sexually betrayed or you're being abused or both, you're not alone. Please know that. And reach out to safe people. That is something else that I teach in my course, is who are safe, that you can create support systems around yourself for you and your children. but you're not alone. Reach out for help.
Thank you.
Hi everyone, my name is Ashley Algar and I am the host of Expertise TV, and I'm very excited to be introducing you to our guest today, Mayim Vega. Now, Mayim Vega is a former NASA computer scientist turned holistic healer after facing a very personal health crisis, which the modern medical system could not resolve. In 2009, she founded Arukah.com, which offers an holistic healer certification program focusing on 3 pillars: naturopathic herbalism, holistic life coaching, and online business and marketing to empower people to become holistic healers and achieve maximum impact in the world. Mayim combines her scientific background, natural healing methods, and faith in the creator and great physician to guide others on a path to personal and professional well-being. Mayim, it's clear that you are very passionate about the topic of holistic health and particularly helping people who are wanting to transition into this approach. How did you find yourself in this line of work, and why is this work so important to you?
Thank you, Ashley, for taking the time to speak with me. And I'd love to answer that question. So, the way I found myself in this line of work starts with my story of when I transitioned from becoming a computer scientist at the NASA Ames Research Center to becoming an entrepreneur and building my first online business in digital marketing. And the reason why I did that is so that I could stay at home and be with my newly born son at the time. And now I have 7 children of my own, and I always wanted to homeschool them and just be there for them. And so that's why I became an entrepreneur. But my first few years as an entrepreneur was extremely difficult. And I thought it was healthy, but later on, after all my studies, I realized there were a lot of things that I was doing that was not very healthy. They were not very healthy habits that I had. And what ended up happening was I got really sick and I thought I was on my deathbed. And I was rushed to the emergency room. And the doctor actually thought that I had a brain tumor. But after extensive testing and examination, she told me that there was nothing wrong with me. I just, I was experiencing a lot of pain, but they had nothing for me. There was nothing they could do for me. She said that she could give me some really strong painkillers, but that's really it. She couldn't really get rid of the problem. And so I took the painkillers, but again, painkillers and any pharmaceutical drug never address the root cause of illness and disease. And that's exactly why this line of work is so important to me and why I went on my own personal journey to become a holistic healer, to study nutrition, herbalism, holistic health, and holistic life coaching, is because we all know people, and probably even ourselves, who, just like me, went to the modern medical system because that's the expected thing to do. That's the normal thing to do. And, tried to get health and healing that way, but hit a dead end, hit a brick wall, and we either got medications that didn't work or that only worked for a while, or that caused side effects that were so terrible that we had to get on other medications, plural, and maybe even the medication or medications caused side effects that caused other health issues. And sometimes the health issues are worse than the first problem that you originally had. And we're on this ridiculous roller coaster of drug after drug, after treatment, after procedure, because the modern medical system never addresses the root cause. And medical professionals who have woken up know this. And that's why I have medical professionals in my program, including, doctors, nurses, nurse practitioners, medical technicians, etc., who are learning from me, who are, taking the certification program because they realize that our system is broken and we need to fix it. It is our destiny as humanity to overcome all this nonsense, really. We can do better and we will do better. I know it. And that's why, in my certification program, sometimes I joke around. No, it's not really a joke, but I say, I'm empowering not just holistic healers, but holistic warriors. We're in a battle. We're in a battle over our own health and healing to safeguard and protect that, and that of our families and friends and community, of course, as well. And we're also in a battle against very powerful people who, because of profits, like to suppress holistic health and healing truths to keep us just sick enough so that we need something, pharmaceuticals, but not well enough to ever get off them. That is truly the goal of big pharma, of the pharmaceutical industry. It's not true. They don't want to heal us. They don't want to cure us. They want to keep us just sick enough so that we keep giving them our money. And you know what? Me personally, I have better things to spend with my money, like on good food, clean herbs, things that don't cause these ridiculous side effects that we experience with pharmaceutical drugs.
Thank you, Mayim. So that brings me to my next question. What are some of the key benefits of transitioning from the conventional healing approach to a holistic approach in health and healing?
Okay, so that's another really great and important question. The key benefits of transitioning from conventional healing to a holistic approach are, right now, I can think of three main reasons. Number one, the holistic approach is safer. Number two, the holistic approach is more effective. And number three, the holistic approach is the true approach that gets to the root cause. Okay. Now, I'd like to illustrate the first point, the safety of holistic medicine. If someone who was taking some, let's say blood pressure medication or something like that, visited me at my house, let's say I invited them over for dinner, and let's say they had to take some of their medicine and they dropped one of their pills, right, in my dining room or in my living room floor. Now, I have very small children. I have a 4-year-old. And what if my 4-year-old found that pill on the floor and thought it was candy or something like that and put it in her mouth and ate it? What would happen? I would immediately have to call the poison control center to get that pill out of her system, because those pills can have deadly side effects. But what if someone dropped a vitamin C pill or a tincture, and one of my children found it? For the most part, if they found it and took it, they might have a little diarrhea. It might be really spicy on their tongue, and so they would stop taking it. But no, I wouldn't have to control the poison control center, because vitamins and herbs and minerals are extremely, like 1,000 times safer than pharmaceutical drugs. There's a few types of, supplements that you might have to call the poison control center, but for the most part, no, you won't have to do that, because our body knows how to work with those substances. It is not a drug. It is a healing tool. Okay. So completely safe. Also, exercise, diet, those are all safe, right? Sleep, those are all part of holistic health and healing. Completely safe, zero side effects. Now, let's talk about the effectiveness. The holistic approach is more effective. And the reason why we know this is because in my practice, and this is the experience of many holistic healers, when it comes to the conventional ways with the pharmaceutical drugs, as I said before, they don't deal with the root cause. They just mask symptoms. So you might take a cough suppressant, let's say, for example. But if you are not dealing with the root cause, why are you coughing in the first place? Why do you have allergies? Why do you have the flu, etc.? Why is your immune system not strong enough to overcome this in just a few hours or just a day or two overnight? Why? Because you have not built up your immune system. You haven't boosted it or lived the kind of life that you need to in order to avoid those common illnesses altogether. I have one of my students is a medical doctor, and she said that she used to take anti-allergy drugs every single week because of her allergies. The allergy drugs don't boost your immune system; they just suppress it. They just oppress your allergy symptoms. But when you have allergy symptoms, it's your body talking to you and telling you, hey, I can't deal with this. I can't deal with this thing that you're eating or this environment that you've just stepped into because of my state of being. I'm not strong enough. That's what your immune system is saying to you. But I taught her a really powerful vitamin protocol that actually boosts your immune system so that your immune system is strong enough to overcome allergies. And so that's the difference. It is effective because it is true. It is true holistic health and healing because it strengthens your immune system. It doesn't silence it, like I said before. And the third issue is the root cause. Holistic health and healing deals with the root cause, and the conventional approach of drugs and surgery, etc., does not. That doesn't mean that you sometimes don't need surgery, for example, or in an emergency situation need a drug, but you're not dealing with the root cause. And if you deal with the root cause, you can make your problems either go away or become extremely minimal, safely, effectively, and naturally without poisoning your body and causing the roller coaster of side effects.
Mayim, you have developed an incredible program that you've already mentioned called the Arukah Holistic Healer Certification Program, which you have specifically created for those looking to either transition into the holistic approach or for those who are wanting to grow in their knowledge and practice. Can you talk us through what differentiates this program from other similar programs that are currently out there?
Thank you, Ashley. Yes, the certification program at arukah.com is really, truly incredible. And there's a few things that set it apart, actually, many things, but I'd like to focus on a few. And one of them is that when I designed the program, I designed it for someone who was in my situation many years ago, someone who was a busy mom who had a lot of work to do and a lot of things on her plate, but still wanted to empower herself with the knowledge of holistic health and healing for herself, for her family, so she could take care of her family, and maybe even build a career where, very specifically, she could stay at home and, just like me, be a stay-at-home mom. And, even a homeschool mom. I've been a homeschool mom. My oldest is 20 now, and I homeschooled him the whole way. And he's already graduated college, and he's got a computer science degree, and he's an entrepreneur himself. I instilled that dream in him. So being able to, I was able to surpass my income at NASA, and still homeschool my children. It's pretty awesome achievement. And so I wanted to empower people in my program to do exactly the same as I've done, to become a holistic healer, to have a successful online business so that they can have time freedom, location freedom, and financial freedom, meaning that there's no glass ceiling. No one who you need to get a raise from. You just have to help people. That's how I get paid, is when I help people, right? And so that's one of the advantages. Another advantage is it's very hands-on and apprenticeship based. And you could go to a college to study to become a naturopathic doctor or another holistic professional like a chiropractor. But it's going to take a lot more money, and a lot more time as well. This program can be completed in 1 year, but because all of my students pretty much are busy professionals already, or busy moms. It's self-paced. So if you have a lot of things on your plate, it's okay. It's still going to be there for you. There's not like a time limit. You're not going to, your grade's not going to be lowered because you submit an assignment late or anything like that. It's self-paced. And so I've designed it for the busy mom or the working woman. And another thing that sets it apart is we have three core pillars in our program. One is that our students study naturopathic herbalism, and that takes up the bulk of our program. And naturopathic herbalism includes studying the foundations of holistic health and healing, identifying toxins and detoxification, also nutrition and orthomolecular nutrition or megadose vitamin therapy, as well as herbalism, which includes also homeopathy and aromatherapy with essential oils. And also they study Ayurveda and traditional Chinese medicine. But it's mostly focused on Western medicine, Western herbalism, excuse me. And then the next core pillar, the second one, is holistic life coaching. And the reason why holistic life coaching is part of the program is to incorporate the mind spirit aspect of it, right? If herbs and supplements are the alternative to pharmaceutical drugs, well, holistic life coaching is like the holistic alternative to psychiatry. It deals with the mind and the spirit, and spirit has to be part of it because we are spiritual beings. We're not just physical beings. We're also spiritual beings. Now, a lot of holistic health and healing schools are based on, different religions, New Age, or, other pagan religions. And this program, because I'm Jewish, is based on the Creator. It's based on the Bible and biblical principles, Judeo-Christian principles. And so therefore, I have a lot of people who are of that faith persuasion, Jews, Christians, or people who maybe, they don't really identify as Jewish or Christian, but they're open to it, or they grew up in that faith, and they don't necessarily want all the new age spirituality. They want the kind of spirituality that they are comfortable with and used to. That's another thing that sets us apart. And life coaching is all about mindset and how to have healthy relationships with yourself, with others. Of course, also, with food and your body and lifestyle. Holistic life coaching encompasses all of that. And it's a very important part of holistic health and healing, especially because stress is often the root cause of many illnesses, common illnesses, and also chronic diseases. So, that mind and spirit aspect is very important. And the third aspect is online business marketing. And again, the reason why that's important is because, as I told you, I really want my students to thrive and to be able to, have that time freedom, location freedom, and financial freedom, which an online business provides. But also because, there's not a lot of jobs for herbalists, or life coaches even. And so we really have to be entrepreneurial. And it's very, very rewarding. And because of my background, with my digital marketing business, my first business, I can really help people in that department.
Thanks so much, Mayim. So I love the power of testimony and hearing people's personal experiences or journeys. Can you share some of the success stories that might be coming to mind or testimonials from past students?
Yes, we certainly have a lot of success stories and testimonials. And we'll show some of those testimonials at the end of our talk today in this video. But I could talk about a few of them that that are maybe recent. One of them is one of my students. She told me that she wanted to become a nutritionist, but I guess her life's journey didn't really allow for that. So when she heard about my program, my certification program, when it first launched, she joined, and she really wanted to help her husband, who had been suffering from colitis under the care of doctors for about 20 years, ever since he was in the military. And he was going from medication to medication and, suffering with diarrhea and insomnia and restless legs and indigestion and, all these terrible things that colitis can cause. And so I actually created a custom module for her to help her husband with that. And in 2 months, she helped her husband get off the medication and heal from colitis using food and herbs and natural holistic healing methods. So that was a great accomplishment for her. And I get people, contacting me saying that I helped them grow their hair back, or actually someone said, "Oh, you helped save save a little girl's life." Just beautiful, wonderful things like that. You helped me heal my daughter. You helped me grow, regrow my teeth so I don't have pain from cavities anymore. Like just all these wonderful testimonies. And that's the reason why I love doing what I do. And and you will too, if you join the program. It's so rewarding and fulfilling to understand and to know that you are helping people, truly helping people in ways that they can't get in the modern medical system. It's so rewarding.
Incredible. Thank you so much for sharing that, Mayim. I can only imagine the sense of reward when people start applying these principles to their lives and actually see a change and transformation. And for somebody as passionate as you are around this topic, to witness that and to be a part of that, I imagine that the reward is priceless. So another common question that arises is, once someone completes the program, what are some of the practical steps one would take in order to start a successful career in holistic health?
Okay, that's a great question. And that's actually what the third pillar of our program is all about, is, what do you do? Practical steps and what you would do to start a successful career in holistic health. And in that program, we teach our students how to create a high ticket transformational health coaching program that really helps people deal with a serious problem, a serious health issue. And that doesn't mean that it's a deadly problem, but it can be something that really affects their life, right? Even skin disorders can really affect your life, right? Even though it's not necessarily deadly. Weight loss could be something that is dealing with a serious issue. There's so many different types of health coaching programs that one can make, anxiety, depression, hormonal issues, etc. So they build, and it's part of the program. They will do this while they're still in the program, and we'll support them the whole way. Is to build that first high ticket health coaching program, and then set up their online assets, such as their website, their social media, a video sales letter, press releases, podcasts, all those things that online entrepreneurs need in order to connect with people, get their message of health and healing out there, and build and grow and scale their business.
Thank you so much, Mayim. It's been so great talking with you today. But before we close, for those that would like to get started on the journey to becoming an holistic healer and wanting to learn a little bit more about the certification program, how did they go about contacting you?
Yes, it's been wonderful talking to you today as well. And for all those who would like to get started on their journey to become a holistic healer and learn more about the certification program, all they need to do is visit the website www.arukah.com, ARUKAH.com, and dig into that and schedule a discovery call. And I would love to be your mentor, your health coach, your teacher in guiding you to become a holistic healer, to become the healer of your home and your family and your community, and to help you build a profitable online health coaching business.
Wonderful. Thanks so much, Mayim. So there we have it, folks. If you are ready to move forward in your own journey of becoming a holistic healer, then you can visit the website at www.arukah.com, where you can schedule your first discovery call. Thanks so much for joining us. It's been an absolute pleasure.